My name is Marc Aroner. Today I'm going to show you how I make the brass rod tube hardware for my Spinoza rod tubes. In order to do that, I'll show you the finished product. This is a top and a collar, and we'll make a bottom. So in order to get started on that, we start with 2-inch solid bar stock. We're going to need to cut some discs for the tops and the bottoms. And the collars we'll make out of some brass tube. So there's a top, there's a collar. First thing we'll have to do is cut our slugs on the bandsaw. So let's go over to the bandsaw and get started. Well, if you're doing this in your basement workshop, I'm sure that it's going to be fine for you to cut off onesies or twosies pieces with a hacksaw. But if I'm going to do a dozen and a half of these, I'd be pretty tired out by the time we were done. So I've set up a little depth of cut stop on this bandsaw, and I'm going to get ready to run it right now. Well, we've cut our solid bar stock slugs. Now we have to face them off. I've got the feed speed jacked way up on this. Now that we've got our slugs cut and faced off, next step is to cut the collars. So this is a 3-inch piece of the tube. I'll get a yield of 3 collar slugs out of it. So let's go right to the HLVH and start cutting these babies up. I'll use this to get the dimensions, but first I've got to cut it off even. Alright, now that we've got our slugs faced off and our collars cut, we're going to bore out our caps and bottoms. I'll start with a drill and then go to a boring bar. That's perfect. I finished with the drill. Now I'm going to enlarge the hole with this jig borer. A little bit more. That's good. Now it's time for the boring bar. Okay, let's check our fit. That's just the way I like it, plenty tight, but it'll still slide on. Now that we've got the tops and the bottoms bored out, our next job is to bore out the collars. So what we're going to do, we're going to bore it to one dimension from one side, turn it around, and we're going to take a deeper cut and bore it out from the other side so that we end up with a lip on it. The lip should be the same ID as our aluminum tube, and the portion that we bored out more deeply should be a slip fit on the rod tube. So let's get started. That's a perfect fit. Now that I've got the collars done on the ID, let's do the OD. So we're going to turn them down to size and then we're going to thread them. I'm going to use this expanding collet to do that. Well, now we're going to thread our collars. I'm going to use a 20 threads per inch cut, and I'll show you how I do this. Now that we've finished threading the collars, we're going to thread the caps. First I'm going to cut an internal chamfer so you get a nice smooth transition up onto the thread. So let's do that first, and then we'll cut our threads. Let's check it with one of the collars we just made. Excellent. Now that we've finished our threading, we're going to start with the finished part. We're going to do the bottoms first. We're going to turn this down, round, break the corner, make a little roundness to it, and then put in the trim marks. Break the corner a little bit. Put in our trim marks. Next, we'll finish the collars by putting the trim marks on, and then I like to do a little scallop right there and right there. I'll show you how I do those. In case you're wondering why we put the trim marks so far apart, we're going to stamp it with our roller die there and on the other side, and then we'll polish it. Now that we've finished the internal threading, it's time to do the rest of the cap. So in order to do that, we're going to use a tool here to cut the OD in. We're going to use this form tool to do the back of the cap, to do the dome part. And this tool We'll do the scallops on it. And we're going to use this to do a couple little scalloped edges right by the knurl. And here's our knurl here. So first thing I'm going to do is put this on the expanding collet. Time to polish. Alright, ready to knurl. A little tip, you need to do this as slow as possible. Ideally 80 RPMs. My machine only goes down to 125, so we'll have to make do. So, there you have it. I'm Marc Aroner, and that's how I make the brass rod tube hardware for my Spinoza model rods.